The NivLu banner is here in War of the Visions, and we're all very excited for this super interesting sniper, but she's not the only one that's coming out. We also have Livialle, who is a master of gravity judging from her photo. So are these units worth your time? Well, we're going to cover that in this week's Should You Pull. I'd like to start by thanking my latest patron, Pocket Potato. Thank you so much for your support, and if anyone is interested, I do have my Patreon link in the description below. I also want to thank War of the Visions Calc for all the information that they provide for these videos, so thank you guys. Okay, so Livialle, she is a pretty interesting unit, but underwhelming in terms of her stats. So, what is she? Well, she's an Earth Black Mage with Cleric and Arithmetician sub-jobs, and we can take a look at her stats here. They're not great. So HP is obviously low. You know, AP is fine. It's actually good. But then Magic. Actually, no, that's fine too. Okay, you know what? We're doing okay. We're doing okay. Dexterity, that's low. Luck, that's very low. Agility, that's super low. So it's the right side that really gets you, and it doesn't get corrected in her kit at all. So she does get a increased healing power for master ability as well as increased magic, and then she gets more magic on her board, which means she actually has a really high magic stat. She has a higher magic stat than Kilfei does. So she's got UR levels of magic, however you want to put that, but then her HP is low and her dex, luck, and agility are low, and that's where the MR part comes in, and the agility is really going to kill you. So taking a look at her resistances, it's your typical strong against lightning, weak against wind, and then she's good against charm and good against disable, and this actually makes me think that, like, you know, maybe she's a class match unit, especially with the charm. That's always nice, and the healing and all this stuff. So we'll talk about that application, but it really does depend on whether or not she can overcome her agility woes. And then resistances, it's mage resistances, they're all bad. She's not meant to take hits, and that's fine. She's just supposed to stay back, and I mean, she does have the range to stay back. She's got Arithmetician, which is very cool, so definitely interesting. Now her rod, it's pretty cool. So magic is okay, 110, that's fine, but reduced AP consumption is really interesting to me. So I don't know if maybe you're in a raid or a long PvP or PvE fight, and your Medina or whatever insert mage here runs out of AP and then needs to use a TP skill, or needs to whack someone. Well, this rod would allow you to maybe cast more spells, but you're gonna lose that spell attack. So at the end of the day, I don't think that this is super good, but it's definitely, for new players to collect TMRs and get some extra rods. You have lots of casters. This is certainly useful, and it could have some applications. Her passives, well, she gets the increased magic, the magic up level 1. She gets the spirit up level 1, which is okay, but it's not a huge deal. And then she gets the arithmetician upgrades for changing, level to multiple of 3 and height to multiple of 2. Her counters, they're all, what you'd expect. So she gets the good counter of auto cure, but she's so weak that she doesn't need it. And same, like, I don't really think any of these counters are going to be a big deal for her. I don't think she'll use them that often. Her main skills for Black Mage, I'm not even going to talk about them that much. They're literally the typical skills. In the main, you have Stone and Stone Ga, and then you've got like your Flare, and then on the sub, you don't really get much. You get Drain and Stone Ra and Sleep and Osmos, so it's all very typical. They're all fine spells, but what you really want to look at is her other jobs for the sub slot. So for Cleric, you get access to Cure, you get Banish, which is a different element, and then you get the Veils, or the Veils. You're going to get the Light Veil and the Dark Veil, which is actually really interesting, and I liked using those with Mastery, so that's kind of cool to have those on her. And then she also gets that Prong Staff, and then Calamity Guard, which could have some applications as well. So I actually really like this little sub. It's not bad, and it is a magic sub, so it provides some magic stat for her. And then Arithmetician, you're going to get access to some of the good skills, but not all of them. So for example, you don't have the level 4/level 3 Stone Ga, the highest level damage. You get Stone Ra and Stone, and you also get the Cure and Cure Ra, and you get the Disable as well. So those are all good skills, but you're missing the most powerful skill. However, this is still going to be great for her range. It's going to be good for farming in PvE, and this is where, the increased healing could be kind of cool. So if she has that increased healing and these are kind of weaker healing spells, then maybe that's going to compensate for them being weaker, and she could actually be this really cool AoE healer. And that's where I want to say, like, who knows, in like a really strict class match where the cost is super low and you need to fit in an MR unit, she could actually be really good. She's got your support skills on Cleric, she's got the healing boost and things like Disable on the Arithmetician, and then she still has Flare, and she still has like high magic and can actually deal damage. So I don't know, but at the end of the day, I still don't think that's worth it because she's so slow and because she'd have a really hard time hitting the opponent. So if we look at some comparisons, we can look at Skull and we can look at Kilfei. And when we look at the comparisons in terms of the magic that they can stack, like right now, Kilfei looks like she's the best. Well, Livialle's going to get increased magic 10, 20, and then 30% passive that she can equip. Skull's going to get increased 20% from his master ability and then 30% passives. Kilfei only gets the increased 30% passive. She doesn't get any board stats or master ability stats. So when you factor in all that stuff, then that's where Livialle actually gets really high magic stat, which is, again, it's interesting. But then look at that, you know, 142 luck, 50 agility. I can't do it. Next up is NivLu, and she's definitely a highly anticipated unit because she brings a new job, Sniper. And if we take a look at her, she's also Lightning Element. She's got 2 jump. She has Gunner and Time Mage sub job, which is really interesting. She's a bow user, so we're gonna have to farm a new weapon, which will, you know, to get her the proper attack. And she's gonna have access to all of these debuffs that you've probably been hearing about, if not having looked up already on the Japan side. So let's take a look at her stats. She's got low HP, and then she has decent AP. Her attack is low, and that's going to be corrected a bit, but it is something to keep in mind that her attack is low. Magic doesn't really matter. She's not going to deal magic damage. She doesn't actually get crit rate, which is, you know, different for a projectile user, but she does have really high dexterity, high luck, and super high agility. She might have the best agility around. So that's, you know, that level of agility and that level of luck means that she could be built evade. And then when we look at her master ability, she gets defense penetration, which is something you always want to see. And she also gets missile attack up, and she'll get more attack from her board as well, although we're working from a lower base stat of attack, so it's not going to be like a massive boost to attack. Now, if we take a look at her resistances, it's exactly what you'd expect. She's strong against water, weak against earth. Then she has the slow resistance, and then the sleep resistance and confusion resistance. And then taking a look at her damage type counters, like 10% slash, great, and pierce, good, but she will take damage from strike. I guess that's not a huge deal. And then from magic. So, I mean, really, that's kind of the way that you'd like to see it. Have a little bit of slash resist. It's a building point, and maybe you can make her survive one attack if possible. But and then her TMR is very interesting. It's an accessory that gives a bunch of HP and then a lot of evade, which is very nice, especially for a new player to get an evade item. And it actually has an ability that increases your evasion rate by 30, and it has a huge AoE. And it's also a high cost TP skill, so it's going to generate 15 AP. So this is a terrific TMR. I think a lot of people are going to want to get this for sure to boost their evade team, and then also just you know, because it's a good piece just all around with the HP and the evade. Okay, so moving on, we've got passives, and she's got some new ones. So long range, she can increase her range, and then concentrate is from Gunner, and she probably won't use that as much because her evasion rate will go down. And then sniper mastery is new, and this is going to increase her luck even further, good for evasion. And then missile attack is something that she needs because she has weak attack. Otherwise, she's got the null CT changes in the speed cast, and the null CT change is something that you need to think about, because if you want her to not get stuck classic Time Mage at the back of a map hasting herself, you want to put that on her so that she casts it on her allies instead, and then when she has no one to cast it on because they already have haste, she starts moving forward, because using her as a Time Mage is absolutely an option for you, and it's a very cool application. So then you might also consider the speed cast, but at that point I think you probably still want the sniper mastery. There's definitely a lot to consider here. As for counters, she gets counter smoke, which is really interesting. It decreases the accuracy of the person that it affects by quite a bit. This can really make your evasion even stronger. So if she can counter your opponent and survive, and then there's a chance that they're not going to hit you again or hit any of your party again. So definitely very interesting. And then you've got counter shot and slow counter as well. But I think the counter smoke's probably the way to go. Alright, here's where it gets very interesting. We have the new main job, Sniper. So let's take a look at the skills. Slow Shot is a weak ability that's going to decrease the agility of the target, and it doesn't cost very much, so that's pretty great. Target is going to be a TP buff that increases your range and your defense penetration, and that's definitely going to be a really solid skill. Dispel Spread is going to dispel all, it says debuffs, but it's buffs for the targets. So this will hit an AoE. It's very strong skill as well, and it's going to hit an AoE, and it's going to take buffs off of people. Slow Arrow is going to decrease the move of somebody, and it's a medium strength attack. And then Barrier Break Arrow is going to break a physical barrier for a target, deal medium damage, and again it's got the same range as the Slow Arrow. Moving on to the sub skills, we've got Arm Shot, which is like the Gunner ability, but it's much weaker, but also costs very little AP, and this has a chance to inflict disable for 3 turns. Target Share is a TP skill that increases her attack and her allies' attack by 30% and increases Nether Beast Killer by 30% for 3 turns for allies. Nether Beasts are espers as far as I'm aware, so that's actually going to be really useful for a lot of raid content. And the attack increase is actually huge, because normally those things are like, oh, increase everybody's missile attack, everyone's whatever attack, but this is going to help anybody that is a physical attacker. And then finally we have Paralyzing Trap, which is an AoE paralysis chance attack that could, it's actually got a 25% chance to inflict the paralyze, and then if you upgrade it, they have an 80% chance of not taking an action on their turn if they have paralyzed. So that's pretty cool. So even more debuffs on the sub skills, and if you want to get saucy, you can go to the Gunner sub, and then you'll have all your classic Gunner skills, and you're going to notice that the potencies on her Sniper abilities are stronger than on the Gunner abilities. So even though she has weaker attacks, she has higher potency attacks, and that's where I'm having a really hard time reading her. I'm wondering if she's meant to be weaker because she has access to such a large amount of support skills, and that would certainly make sense. But then I'm wondering, if she has all this missile attack, if she has all these high potency skills, is she still going to do lots of damage like you would expect a Gunner to normally do, like a decent amount of damage. So anyway, you've got everything that you would normally have here with your Gunner, and the things that are pretty nice are the Aimed Fire and Counsel are very good buffs, and you would use these to keep her around your party, and then you would get access to more debuffs. I'm actually, and you do have Double Shot for chaining as well. That's something, she can chain with Frederica if there's raid content that, needs that. But then otherwise, I don't know that you would use the Gunner sub other than for the buffs, because the rest of her skills on her first kit are pretty good. However, for the Time Mage, this is something that I think has some good application. Now let's get this out of the way. She's not going to be commenting anybody at all, but she can haste your party. She can quicken your party, which is so good to just have on a unit, and you can definitely make some really fun compositions in auto and manual PvP. So I think this is an absolute treat to have this sub job, and I'm super excited to see how people use this with the haste, especially with that CT null, so that she doesn't use it on herself. I think this could be really strong. Of course, when you have Time Mage, that means that she probably got less attack stats from the nodes on this grid, but I think it's worth it for the amount of utility that NivLu offers. Finally, let's take a look at her limit burst. So it's called Spider Rain. It's a very expensive ability at 58 AP, so you're definitely going to want to have bells for her to use this, but it's a medium strength attack that increases or decreases defense by 35 to your targets. So this is massive. It's not a penetration, it's a break. It's a defense break. It subtracts 35 from your opponent's defense, and that can go negative. So this is a really big debuff. If you can get her to start the match off with this, and then your other DPS run in and start just whacking everybody, that would be pretty amazing. Like, I think this is a very strong limit burst, and that's why it's appropriately costed so high. So definitely something to watch out for. And now we need to do some comparisons, and first up we're going to have Frederica, and I chose Frederica because they're very similar. They're both lightning projectile damage dealers, and I think that this is a perfect example of how War of the Visions hasn't power crapped units yet, or at least not every unit yet, because here we've got our second projectile lightning unit, and you would think that would be a direct replacement for Frederica, but it's not. NivLu is actually weaker than Frederica, but she's got other utilities. She has a bunch of debuffs. She can buff your party with time mage stuff, and she has a ton of evasion applications. She's faster than Frederica, and she's got better dex, better luck. She's not going to have the same amount of strength and kind of skills to increase her damage or crit more often, but that doesn't matter. Like, she has all these other skills, and I think that the two could work really well together, and they don't necessarily, like, one replaces the other. So I think this is just a really cool example of how, we don't have to worry about power creep as much as some people might think. And then Luartha is the other comparison I just want to show. This is our newest gunner, our newest projectile besides NivLu, and you can see that, the attack is much higher on Luartha, but Luartha was really high for a gunner already anyway, and then the trade-off there is that Luartha is very weak in terms of HP and self-sacrifice and her resistances, but you can see Luartha is built to crit, and then NivLu is not as much, so although she's got high luck and dex, so that will definitely help. Now, the question is, should you pull? So we'll do some pros and cons. So for Livialle, I already forgot what her name is, decent magic stat. The buff to healing could really work with that arithmetician sub. I think she could be a solid farmer for a new player, or an unlucky Ildira not haver. And then the cleric utility is interesting. So if you're brand new, like I remember when I started my alt account, which I gave up on, and I was able to get Ravies, I just pulled her when I was pulling for Oldoa, and I ended up building her because it's so easy to build a unit that's on banner, and I got a TMR that I could use, I got a decent tank. Well, this could be the same thing for a brand new player. You could really do worse than Livialle, because you'll be able to get an AoE farmer, a healer, and someone that has some usability, but at the highest level of content, she's not going to cut it with her low stats, but her magic is good. Yeah, so that's it. The MR stats, obviously, and then just we have a better unit for all of her roles, and she's just kind of like okay. Now for NivLu, there's really a lot to like about her. She's got seriously high agility, dex, and luck. Lots of utility in kit. Lots of debuffs. Can use haste on auto, quicken for live PvP, quicken for auto PvP too, and then double shot for chaining, so she's even got that utility. And then the cons would be she's made of glass. She'll do lower damage. I think she'll do lower damage than other projectile units, and she can't equip one of your 3+5 Ras Elgethis. I'm so sorry, you're gonna have to craft a new weapon. So in conclusion, don't pull for Livialle, probably, unless you're brand new, and I still wouldn't even pull for her, but if you get her, you could build her. And then yeah, pull for NivLu. She's really solid. I think she's protected going into the future because she's not just an attacker, she has debuffs and all sorts of abilities and skills. She's definitely a good build, a good get, and a great TMR, so you're safe to do that. But at the end of the day, you have to make your own opinion. You can't just do what I say and then blame me. You are in full control of your body and your ability to judge something for yourself. So thanks for watching. I hope this was useful, and let's get to talking in the comments.